My name is Rebecca Volpeno, and I am on the Cielo team. I lead product marketing here for the organization. Really excited to kick off this webinar with these two of my faves. So, Stephen, over to you for a quick intro.
Thank you, Rebecca. This is Stephen Jiang, founder and CEO at hireEZ. My background is a software engineer, but I didn't code for years. I'm very enjoy this type of webinars and hope to collect some great questions, and we also can have a very productive and engaged conversation.
Thanks, Stephen. Matt?
I was just waiting to be invited to introduce myself to be a polite British person. Hi everyone, good to meet you. I am the Chief Product Officer at Cielo. I've spent the last 20 years or so working in recruiting, talent acquisition, and HR. I get to work with some phenomenal partners like Stephen and the hireEZ team, and spend a lot of my time figuring out how to solve problems for organizations from a talent acquisition perspective around the world. Yeah, great to be here.
Well, and I would say that one of the things that I really appreciate about both of you so much is that you had such strong practitioner backgrounds. You've been in the industry for a very long time, and you really haven't lost sight of that. So even when we're talking about really big strategic initiatives and we're having these big idea think sessions, we always think about, and you both really keep that practitioner front of mind. And I think that's what's, something that stands out to me about both of you so much. And so we're here to talk about 2025. I've already seen a few things on the internet about how work for the next 3 weeks, we're trying to push into the next year. So it's really fitting that we're talking about what we're going to do next year, not necessarily in the next 3 weeks. So when you think about 2025, and I guess, Stephen, we'll start with you just to kind of get things kicked off. But when you think about 2025, what are some of the significant shifts that you expect us to see in talent acquisition?
Rebecca, you forgot our rule number one, always Matt, and you kick the ball to me first. Okay, so happy to take this one. When we're talking about the future trending shifts, and those are very broad question, and it's hard to answer. But generally, I use this framework to think about the future. What are the fundamentals that won't change? When we talk about what changed, and we always need to find what won't be changed. Okay, so and the more people I talk to, especially those CHROs or VP of the talent acquisition or HR, and I realize one thing is will not be changed. It's about the value of the talent acquisition as a function. So why, at the first place, why did we create this talent acquisition function in the company? I think the demand from the expectation from the CEO, and that is not changed. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so in the especially now we have the very let's say the dynamic macro environment plus the AI disruption, the CEO's expectation on the talent acquisition actually is getting higher, much higher. And take myself as an example, and I had continuous conversations with our head of people. I need to challenge her. Hey, for my business, and what should be the right talent persona, and for this business, and what should we do, and who should we work with so that we are able to survive? Okay, we are not saying thrive, okay, and in this environment, it's so fast moving, and the survival is the big topic for all CEOs. Okay, so then the talent advisory, that will be the big demand or request, the number one requirement from CEO, in my opinion. So and a lot of the CEOs probably they have been asking this question. Tell me what's the strategy for our talent, and how can we win from the people strategy? Okay, and that answer must be from the TA leaders. And more practically, okay, let me challenge the people in this webinar. So go back to look at all job descriptions and do not assume your CEO, your C-suite, your VP, your director, and your managers. Do not assume any of the hiring manager knows what the heck in that job description, because those job description itself must be changed. Why? Give you one concrete example. So 2 nights before, and I challenged my hiring manager and also the corresponding recruiters. Why we need this specific long-science skills for this software engineering positions, right? And the hiring managers, they cannot answer. And the recruiters for sure cannot answer the question. So, and turns out, and we said a co-pilot, this AI tool, engineers now, they are writing codes block by block, not a 9 by 9 anymore. Come on. So, and then the job itself is changed. Then who should provide the answer? Talent acquisition functions. And that's the big shift I'm seeing. So be the talent advisor instead of being recruiter. And I think a talent advisor, it's more a sales job. Okay, so sales, and they don't call it as a sales, and they call account executive. Okay, fancy name. That executive tells all the stories behind. Okay, so the talent executive, that will be the shift I'm seeing for the future. So it's not only 2025. I'm seeing in the 2025, 2026, and 2027, and I hopefully the recruiters start to see practice in this way. Okay, so I think Matt will have a much more opinions about this. Okay, so go ahead, Matt.
Well, and I'd like to just quickly summarize it. So I think, Stephen, what I'm hearing and what I think our audience is hopefully hearing from you is that we're going to be up against a lot of the same challenges. The TA landscape, that's been really challenging this year. We thought maybe we'd see some green shoots or some opportunity, continues to be a bit challenging. So no change there, some of that constant. But what you're really saying is you see the role of the recruiter or the talent acquisition team becoming more consultative and kind of taking, instead of being that order taker recruiter, taking the job description at face value, I'm really going to go in if I'm that head of TA or I'm that recruiter and have more of an advisory mindset. Which I think is huge, and it does play into AI. And Matt, would love to know your thoughts on that as well. But just wanted to quickly summarize that for the group because I think you said a lot of really fantastic things. Yeah, Matt, what would you add?
Well, I'm reflecting that I wish when I entered the recruiting industry, I could have been a talent executive at that moment as opposed to a recruiter. But and then on the topic of change, I think. And actually see if someone can guess in the chat here. I love the quote that change has never been so fast, but will never be as slow again, right? As this slow again. So like things are only going to get faster. A couple of things that I would add. I totally agree with everything Stephen's saying, and constant challenge and an agile mindset around the talent we're looking for and the talent we need to power our businesses and how we get work done, I think is a big topic of conversation. Some of the more enlightened organizations in the world today are already starting to dissolve the boundaries between worker engagement models. What I mean by that is FTE versus SOW versus 1099 versus whatever other label you want to give it. Actually, it's about getting the talent you need to do the work that needs to get done in the organization. And we can figure out how to pay them and how to compensate and everything else later on. So we're starting to see some of the really smart organizations think about that differently. We're all human beings, and so the thing that appeals to us about getting some work done is the same, whether I'm getting paid fractionally or kind of permanently. So that trend will continue, and I think we'll see some big results from that. The other thing I wanted to mention is if you read the World Economic Forum's jobs report from last year, actually, they project that between 2023 and 2027, 83 million jobs will be eliminated and 69 million jobs will be created. So putting aside the difference in the balance there, that's about 13% of the workforce, or the amount of jobs in the workforce that will be eliminated and then recreated. That sort of echoes Stephen's point about this need to be agile and continually recreate what you need, because actually the skills that we're going to need next year and in 2026 that probably don't exist combined in a job description or a role profile today. And there's some things that we're doing today that we won't need in 2026 and 2027. And I think we'll start to see that in 2025. So we'll start to see new roles emerging, new ways of combining it. Actually, if you look at healthcare, it's already happening, right? There's a shortage of talent in healthcare. And so what healthcare executives are doing is saying, let's remove certain parts of these roles that are not clinically specialist or technically specialist. It reduces the amount of people we need to do those technical or clinical roles because they're doing pure roles now. And we've created new administrative or clerical roles that sit alongside it. So you can already see it in the world. So exciting times. The other thing I want to add, I think candidate experience is going to be huge in 25. If we think about the gap between the consumer experience we have and the consumer tech that we have available, and then the kind of work tech and employment tech that's available, that gap is shrinking every year. I've been doing this for too long, so I remember when it was very far apart. And the first CRMs arrived, which were effectively address books with no functionality at all, but you could index all these people. Actually, that gap is now closing, and we can look at the rest of the enterprise, marketing, consumer, engineering, and get some inspiration. And I think that's where organizations are going to win, is on experience and hyper personalization, which we'll no doubt talk about when we talk about AI. But really putting people in the role in the organization and communicating specific needs. I think if you don't do that by the end of 25, you're going to see a significant drop off in your conversion rates and your application rates and in your sourcing as well. So.
Yeah, I can definitely sense that. And I think maybe let's start talking about AI, because Stephen had mentioned kind of an audit or a review of all of the job descriptions within the organization to determine, like, are we looking for the right talent? Are we calling out the right competencies? Are we asking the right questions in the interview? And you've now talked about, hyper personalization. So that really leads me to believe that AI has a really big stake in this, or an opportunity for us next year. I don't think that's probably comes to a shock to anyone on this call, but how do you really see AI helping us and helping really agile TA teams next year?
You want me to go first, Stephen?
Of course.
He does.
I think on this one, think about AI as the Hollywood actor, right? AI is going to be a good guy and a bad guy at different times next year.
I like that analogy.
What I mean by that specifically is, on the bad guy side, we've had enough time now with this new round of generative AI in the enterprise, in talent acquisition, in HR, and in the wider enterprise, that we're going to start to see some misadventures and some bad actors and some stuff that goes wrong. Like any technology, like any new process, like any new thing, right? New cars, new technology, sometimes it goes wrong, right? And so that's going to produce a bit of negative hype. So we're going to see real examples, lawsuits, so on and so forth as we go through next year. The other thing that's happening next year, specifically from a legislative perspective, is most of the major legislation and regulation that has been passed. So Biden's executive order, EU AI Act, various other things, actually comes into enforcement in the summer of 25 through the summer of 26. So everyone's going to get very excited and very scared. Now, this bad guy is a bit of a red herring, and we shouldn't use it as a reason to slow down. We should just use it as a reason to say we just have to be responsible, pick the right partners, do the right things, do the right use cases, right? So I actually think, look out for it. My guess is we'll see it in the first half of the year. We'll see increased skepticism. We'll see concerns from legal departments. We'll see a few things in the press that are more worrying about some bad use cases. But it's just technology breaking through and becoming commonplace and being mass use. On the good guy side, I'll let Stephen talk a little bit more about some of this, but I'm really exciting about how if we actually think about putting experience first, we can build some incredible use cases that deliver benefits from a productivity and efficiency perspective, but actually drive incredible kind of experiences for all the stakeholders involved. I think about like fully empowering hiring managers. I mean, hiring manager is not a job, right?
True.
If you made me an engineer for the day, I would be terrible at it. Likewise, when we make engineers hiring managers for the day, they're not always brilliant at it either, right? So like how does AI make hiring managers good at something they do infrequently? Because being hiring manager is not a job, including writing great job descriptions and doing great interviews and doing all these other kind of things. Hyper personalization. And then I think there's some super benefits coming on the candidate side around inclusion, social mobility, equitable kind of processes as well. So, but I know Stephen has some great ideas and thoughts in those areas, so I'm gonna let him build on my good guy, bad guy analogy a bit.
I love the way you're saying the good guy, and that Steven tell more stories about that. Okay, so thank you. You're very generous. And I think about the impact brought by AI, and people in this room and heard a lot of great things, and also very negative things as well, and sometimes, and it's hard to hear the like broader stories than those typical the technology evangelists. Okay, and that's also not a position. We are here to tell those repeat those messages. But then let's talk about the specific impact in the day-to-day work for recruiters and also recruiting leaders. What that truly means. And Matt mentioned the macro number, the statistics, and in the coming years, and we are going to lose job. Okay, so the net new is elective. So what that truly means, and especially for the TA leaders, we should change and refresh the view we have about the labor market. And if we look back, the previous wave of technology, and that's a cloud computing plus the mobile internet. Okay, that's one thing very fascinating. Okay, and think about when the server rooms moved to the cloud. All right, so and people thought about, okay, and those 100 people, 1,000 people, they are going to lose the job. Yes, they did. But then after years, after several years, and we started to observe one thing very, very interesting. And previously, if you want to build $1 billion high-tech company or traditional company, and you got to have 2,000 employees. But then later on, 200 people built that $1 billion business. And because building that a great business the barrier has been lower, then there are so many smart minds and emerged from the market, and so many great startups and so many great businesses and started to be built. And then if we look at that 10 years and put every decade as the range to look at the productivity, and also look at how many large size of a business we created globally. Okay, that was fascinating, because we created so many new use cases and new use applications, and also the foundations for the whole industry. So, and what I mean is 200 people created this gigantic business, and 20 companies might be created to create that type of a business. So, and 20 multiplied by 200, how many? 4,000. And before one company, or say two companies have that size of that business, how many employees they can hire? 2,000. Okay, 2,000 versus 4,000, and that was exactly what we experienced in the past 2 decades. Keep that in mind, right? And when the 4G technology and the cloud computing merged together, what was created? Uber, Lyft, Airbnb, DoorDash. Those are software we cannot live without, okay, in our daily life. But think about 20 years ago, that won't be possible. Okay, so and not only those companies, because those companies, and they created the very rich ecosystems, and that also make the service industries and all industry evolve, okay, and grow. So that's how I expect the AI will bring to the industries today. And for the very beginning and for a certain period of time, and probably 3 to 5 years, and we are going to lose more jobs than the AI created. If we look at the past 2 years, AI didn't create that many jobs, okay? And don't freaking trust those magnificent seven, okay? And those companies, their founders and their executives, of course, they tell you AI will create. But the fact is that it didn't. But it doesn't mean it won't. It will, okay? It will create. It's just about period of time. So we got to be patient. And then back to talent acquisition leaders. Explore those fundamentals for your CEOs. Your CEOs, a lot of them didn't think that deeply about people. So tell what should be the strategy for the CEOs to go through the storm, and there's a cycle to create the great business. And also, more importantly, embrace the AI technologies so that no matter you are working for this company, you will be working for this company or other companies, and you've got to prepare yourself for the next blooming economic because of this new technology. So that's how I see the AI. Okay.
Yeah. I've seen or read in a few different places now that AI won't take your job, but someone who knows how to use AI will. What do you two think about that? I mean, Stephen, from your perspective, you're saying like maybe it will take your job in the beginning and then people will get more creative and will come up with new ways to leverage AI, like you were saying, creating things like Uber and Lyft and Airbnb, things we wouldn't have had had we not made this big shift. Do you feel the same?
First of all, I think that message was created by the Jensen Huang in one of the forum, and he attended. So look at, he made 99% of the revenue of the profitability of the AI. Okay, so be very careful, be very cautious, and we certainly need to digest that message more objectively. So AI will replace the positions. As simple as that, okay? And we know it, no matter how we say it, but that's the fact. But for leaders, especially for leaders, and also for talent advisor, consultant, think about the AI will replace certain things. But then in the meantime, see, the tide race all boats. The hiring managers can also be replaced. Candidates can also be replaced. Recruiters can also be replaced. And no one in this ecosystem is safe. Okay, but then everybody do not underestimate the resilience of the humans. As long as we don't have the overprotection, and humans, we figured out things. So, and we embrace the AI in the meantime, also find the new value in the whole recruiting process. Okay, so probably the company, think about this 200, 2000 as the analogy. And in the future, and a lot of companies that maybe $1 billion business created by 20 people. And then for the larger organization, they also think, hey, we have as many units of 20 people, and how can I grow the business and bring that mindset to those 20 people's unit?
Yeah.
I like always, I agree with Stephen. I also just want to be like, let's take a minute to all be honest with each other. There's some parts of jobs that really suck. They're terrible. Like we want to do certain, there's some things that like we shouldn't do, and we haven't been able to automate it or have AI do it in the past, right? So let's give that stuff to some of the new agentic models that we have available, right?
Yeah.
Also, there's some services and experiences we have in our lives that suck as well. Like I'd far rather have a generative AI call center agent at American Airlines rebooking me when I'm in the line of 400 people at Dallas or Dallas
Mm-hmm.
Fort Worth or at Chicago O'Hare Airport, rather than sit in the queue waiting to speak to a person, which ultimately means I miss my my rescheduled flight. So in some cases, this is going to really help and be super useful and actually going to be a good thing, right? Like Stephen said, there's going to also be, it's going to happen in different areas as well. I kind of want to hark back a bit to the original question as well about talent acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to. The great thing about being in TA and HR is like we get to see the whole enterprise. So we don't have to like predict what's going to happen in the future as much as look around the rest of the enterprise and say, oh, what's happening in the customer org with, the call centers and the agents there? How are they being augmented, or potentially how some of those roles being replaced? What's happening in engineering? Like, oh, we see, everyone's got co-pilots and typer heads and stuff like that. So we can look around the rest of the organization as talent acquisition and HR professionals and say, where do I see examples of use cases that are not so far away from what we do in HR and talent acquisition that will
Mm-hmm.
find their way in? And if I were leading an HR function or a TA function, that's the first spot I would go to, which is, hey, let me have a look around the rest of my organization and see what's working really well and see how that can translate into my function and build a
Yeah.
plan, right? And even if your organization is not quite ready just yet, have a plan so that when your CFO or your CEO or your chief transformation officer turns around to you and says, "Hey, look at all these great results we're getting at in the customer org or in the engineering org or in the marketing org," you can say, "Great, here's the plan for how we do some of that in TA and HR as well." So I think actually there's a ton of like big, like exciting optional stuff for us when we
Mm-hmm.
talk about replacing work, and whether it's entire roles, parts of roles, we can drive better experiences for our customers and our users. We can drive better experience for the employees, and we can, ultimately deliver better value to our organizations. We do have to be mindful of what happens to the displaced people, and so there's like this reskilling conversation to go on and everything else. But like, I think it's like worrying too much about or just focusing on the displacement is missing the positive impact that we can have. So yeah.
So true. And just like a little joke here, I wrote in the chat, I don't know if you can see it, but I'm really hoping that with this generative AI wave, we get to a 4-day work week. That would be great. If I could be more productive, if I could be more productive at my job and maybe have an extra day off, I'll have to talk to Marissa about that. But um, love your perspectives, and thank you all for engaging in the chat. Really appreciate your commentary so far. It's been really great. Would love to see if you have any other questions for us that we'll get to towards the end of the call. I think as we start to think about the future of work, and we've talked a lot about experiences, we started to talk about reskilling and upskilling. What are some of the ways that we can take those actions next year? I know, again, like tactically, we talked a little bit about job descriptions, but when you think about looking at your workforce and again, looking around your organization to say like, oh, lots happening in the customer world, or they're using AI really heavily in R&D. What are some of the other like next steps that people can take to get ready for kind of this reskilling and new frontier with AI?
I
Go
Let
ahead.
me jump in on that one.
Sure.
I I have a real passion for like starting with the opportunity and problem statement versus like just the shiny thing. Like
Yep.
AI is at the moment AI is a utility, right? We're not like the AI is not building the AI yet, and the AI is not employing the AI yet, right? I mean, I guess if you extract time long enough, at some point that will happen. But
Uh-huh.
so right now, we're doing the humans are doing that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's start with what we're trying to improve and what our problem statement is and where our opportunity statement is, right? Like if you're an engineering org, perhaps actually because you employ a lot of engineers, software engineers, coders, developers, perhaps like driving better candidate experience through an automated interface is a great way of going because you've got folks who actually like to engage that way, right?
Mhm.
If you're in retail and hospitality, maybe that's about speed. If you're in professional services, maybe actually it's about knowledge management or something else. So I think like start with some context and look at the experiences rather than like
Mhm.
what AI is available now. Let me, if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So let's not start with the hammer. Let's start with the what the opportunity might be. I also think results. You look for results elsewhere in the organization, and like again, look at the comparative. If you're an organization that has any kind of like customer
Mhm.
org activity, it's a really good proxy for kind of employee experience and candidate experience. And so like look at what's happening there, see what's being productive. Likewise, marketing, if you do any kind of B2B or B2C marketing,
Mhm.
how's generative AI helping accelerate that capability? And then figure out like how could we use that in our recruiting org? Because again, recruiting and TA is about marketing experiences to candidates. HR is a lot of HR is customer service for employees. It's a lot more complex than that. Please don't send me any letters. But the starting point is giving great experience and great service to employees, not to customers. So I'm really passionate that you should start by looking at what you have, looking at your kind of opportunities and problem statements, and going from there, as opposed to let's go shopping for some technology first.
Yeah.
Because there's plenty of options, there's plenty of ways in which you can drive, you can pick a tool or pick a service or pick a provider to deliver that. You have a
Mhm.
couple of wonderful ones on this call, but there's many others who aren't as good. But there's start with the opportunity, start with the problem statement, start with the comparable examples in the rest of your organization, and then actually listen to your users is the last thing I would say. So this stuff
Yeah.
is actually pretty quick and easy to deploy. You can deploy it in parts of your organization, parts of your talent acquisition process. Hear some feedback from some people who are interacting and make a change. Like do that, be iterative, be agile, take that experience. I'm staying away from saying do one specific thing or one part of
Yeah.
a process because it could be different. I think personalization is key. I think availability, like as in like availability of conversation and knowledge management is key and something that's going to drive better consumer experiences. And
Mhm.
then otherwise, again, listen to your users, understand where the opportunity is, and go from there.
Yeah, I think that's big. Making sure that, the changes that you make are really personal to your organization and the pain points that, the stakeholders are experiencing. Because if you just go and chase the latest shiny object or the tech that's making the most noise in the market, you might be just layering technology or AI on top of, an already maybe broken process. So I think that's really great insight for the group. Stephen, what would you add?
I completely agree with Matt. Okay, and that's a very critical at. Okay,
Yeah.
so and this approach is that this is a principle. I truly love it. And do not reinvent the things quickly.
Mhm.
Okay, because most likely you might be influenced too much by the hypes. Okay,
Mhm.
at this moment, acceleration is more important than autonomous. Okay, so the acceleration. So use the tool and to accelerate your process, and that is very practical suggestion. I also talked with a lot of our customers, and I summarize three very great practice that they are doing. So number one, uh, the leaders, especially the executive level, in the people strategy and in the talent acquisition, and they start to think in a business leaders way. Okay, ROI calculation, P&L mindset, and the productivity, that mindset, talent quality. Okay, instead of some other more in the past, especially 2021, 2022, a lot of hype and very short-sighted strategies were talked. Okay, 2023, also a lot of short-sighted and basically panicking. Okay, so but now I'm seeing a lot of people care about what the CEO and COO, CFO, and what they think. That's great sign. Start to think the business pro questions. Okay, and second, a lot of our customers, and they also start to build the foundation in the process. The new TA process, and two things are very critical. Number one, you got to think about your data, your candidate data, your job data. Okay, so the data centralization will create all the future insights you need, right? And we all often say, hey, we need to be more strategic. We need to be more data driven. What that means,
Yep.
you don't have you don't take care of your data, then who will give you that strategy? Who will give you that insights? No way. Okay, so and one thing very critical is that AI, generative AI, is a generative AI. Okay, generative, and it needs data. So data is the food, is all of things, the materials it needs. So you need to have your own data, and that data then you can apply the AI as a tool to generate the insights, proprietary insights, and that's critical. So that's about process, and we are seeing people are building that unified TA platform. That's very important. Okay, so and the third thing, and recruiters are actually much more hungry. Okay, and one specific example, and we have this community. So Dan Horton is leading that talent community, and compared this year and compared to last year, and we have a much more attendees, and they are hungry for the AI, for the new skills, and they want to upskill themselves. And also the TA leaders, right? And how Dan Horton generate those audience and to then join. A big portion of them were found the TA leaders. They sent the people to, hey, that's a free resource, and upskill, and then all of things. So I think this is just a small piece of the whole picture. And I believe in, at this moment, a lot of the TA leaders, a lot of the TA professionals, and they want to learn more. They want to catch up, right? And look at, we have 41 attendees for the last more than 20 minutes, and no one dropped. That is the hunger needed for the new environment and also the new dynamics. So these are three things, great things, very inspiring things I observed. So I want to share with everyone.
Yes, I agree with you. I feel a lot of curiosity and hunger in this space, which is great. I'm really energized by that as well. You talked about data, so I think we should get into that question. Have always been important, but are, to your point, becoming very, very important in the process now that we have tools that feed really significantly off of the data sets. And so, what types of data should TA leaders prioritize next year? How can they leverage that and wield that power? Anything specific?
Different companies have different views, right? And let's look at from a high level. Let's categorize them in, let's say, in three categories. And number one, what data you should present in a boardroom, okay? And to the board, to the C-suite. That's very tactical and very realistic. If you don't present well, it's not good, right? So, and what data you need to collect. That's very important. Okay, and a lot of those data, if you just ask ChatGPT, and trust me, in the meeting they also ChatGPT, then probably there would be some very embarrassing conversations. Okay, so get from your own proprietary data, and that is the insights your hiring managers, your candidates, and your recruiters and their engagement create those insights and collect those data. And second, collect the market data and the talent quality and density, and also the how can we win in this, survive and then win in this environment. That is about business. That is about market. That is about competitive analysis. Bring that insights, okay, and start to collect the market insights. And third, data. Again, it's a performance data, and you need to hold everybody accountable as a leader. And also, every recruiter, they want to be rewarded by the performance, and how to see it, right? You got to start to collect and analyze and present to all the ICs so that they will be inspired. Okay, and there's a three categories. Okay, one is for the ballroom, right? And what you need to present, those are strategic data. Okay, second, the market insights, and third, the performance data. So
Matt, what are your thoughts? What data do we need to prioritize next year?
I think Stephen characterized it really well. Just to maybe build on a couple of those points. I agree. Being really clear and accurate and checking your data sources is super important when you're reporting out, because these things, you can't see because it's blurring, but these things with Microsoft Copilot or ChatGPT Professional or Llama or whatever you have on it have basically democratized data, right? So I can get a reasonably good answer by just doing a couple of prompts in one of the free-to-air large language models that's pre-trained on information up to 3 or 4 months ago, right? And so what you don't want to do is walk into a boardroom or into a presentation and have data that's got gaps in it that someone is going to poke holes in, as Stephen said. The second thing, when I think about market data, back to like things have never changed so fast and they'll never be this slow ever again. That goes for like data sources and the way in which we need to stay on top of it. So, I mean, Stephen and I talk a lot about some of the new capabilities with agentic AI and how you can really stay on top of like, there's no such thing as real-time data. I mean, we take in real-time data as human beings, right? But pretty up-to-date daily data. That's going to be some of the new currency of some of the best TA professionals. If you think about, if you're a manufacturing organization that hires, does seasonal hiring, or a retail organization doing seasonal hiring, and you need to hire a couple of hundred, couple of thousand people all in one go, if your competitor starts doing that a day or two earlier than you want to be on top of that and know that pretty quickly so you can respond. So like your sales data, like your marketing data, you want to be able to get closer to real time with TA data. So I think having great partners who have hundreds of millions of data points is important. Like a few million bits of data is not relevant anymore. Like you need hundreds of millions of data points globally to be able to triangulate things, and then having some way of saying, how do I kind of refresh this quickly? Even if it's not super accurate, like precision could be the enemy of great here. You might want to be able to say like what's generally happening. So I think that's an important point. And then I think on the point of proprietary data, depending on how large you are as an organization, what you have is unique to you. That's why it's proprietary data, whether that's employee data, candidate data, or wherever else you're getting your data from. That is unique to you. It isn't going to be a larger data set than you can find through some of this new capability, but it is going to help you in honing down the question and the parameters of what you're looking for. So your proprietary data is no longer your advantage for doing analysis as such. It's actually your advantage for asking the right question in the analysis, right? So think about it this way, right? If you're an organization that has 200 software engineers, the performance data, the demographic data, the skills data you have on those 200 software engineers correlated correctly to output and performance, that's unique to you. No one else has that because those are your people with your proprietary data. That can be used in a question of where do these skills in this composition exist in the world to help me find another 100 of these or 200 of these or 300 of these. So actually where I think we're going with data is proprietary data becomes more useful in asking the question than in the answer to the question, because the answer to the question is outside of your walls. So that's the only thing I would add is like think about your own data as a way of asking better questions of data providers, of of large language models, of other people, basically. So
Yeah, that's really interesting to think about. And then it does kind of come full circle, doesn't it? Because the more that you know about your organization, the way that those types of roles work specifically within your organization, it helps inform the reskilling and upskilling conversation. It helps inform the job description. It helps inform what markets you go after. So it really feels like that should be a key priority for next year and beyond. Really valuable insight.
I think there's one thing, Rebecca, there's one thing that could happen in the world of talent over the next couple of years is this kind of significant redistribution of talent and skills around the world. And that's one of the reasons I think it's important to stay on top of data, like month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year. Some of us on this call are accountable for deciding to where we're going to put certain functions in our organization. Where do I want my customer team? Where do I want my prompt engineers? That was a good one from the last year or so. Build a prompt engineering team. Where do I want them? Where do I want my design folks? And I think that there's a lot of interesting stuff happening in the world right now, a lot of geopolitical stuff, which is causing interesting challenges for people. A lot of opportunity as a result of that as well, when you think about regulation and taxation and these kind of things. So I think there may potentially be this redistribution of talent.
Yeah.
And your traditional locations that you would go to get tech talent or clinical talent or whatever talent may start to shift a bit as people sort of, I don't know, go back to places where their family are from, or just decide to go live somewhere, nicer than where they live today, or with a different kind of political outlook. And so I think that's going to be important to stay on top of as well. It sort of flies in the face a bit of this return to office thing.
Yeah.
But I suspect that at some point, finding the right talent to make your organization work well, they end up beating having everyone in an office 5 days a week, right? Or at least figuring out where you locate your office at some point in the future. So
Agreed. Stephen, any thoughts on that? Anything else too that we haven't covered? I know we're coming up on just a few minutes left, and everyone, please, if you do have questions, we'd love to take them in the chat and I can relay them to the group. But Stephen, anything you'd add on the data piece?
So the data and AI and they are like twins. For people here, and I want to share more technical things about those technologies. I don't think today's AI, and it's so think about the pace of AI's disruption and the scale. It has several factors behind. First, it's cost. Okay, so and the AI industries, and they also need a time to build the scalable and cost-effective technologies behind to catch up. So for instance, at the beginning of the automations in the manufacturing, and one the automation arm, and that was super expensive, and compared to hiring 100 people, probably 100 people will be cheaper than that. Okay, so and then at that moment, it was not possible to put those automation in the assembly line. Okay, so but then data and technology and all areas as technology to lower that cost, and that started to be available. And also look at the White House at Amazon, and same story happened. And now let's look at the talent acquisition, same thing. Okay, and the AI and the technologies need to be cost effective first, and then second, the AI agent, and that for sure will be the big component of the future SaaS companies. Okay, so all the tools you are having, probably they will be disrupted and generated by the AI agent, and then the AI agent's capability is truly in a vertical. So it will break down the skills. So for example, for one role, and can break down into 10 functions, 10 skills, and then each skill, each capability will use one AI agent to automate, to replace. Okay, so that also takes time, and that's the pace. See, I'm here to lay out what will happen in the future, in my personal opinion. Okay, so
I love it.
And the third is about the data, and the generative AI now is seeing the ceiling of the data, and all the internet data, the open web data, the public data has been, so every key vendors in that LLM, and they digest those data already. So now they lack of the more data and further data. So who has the data they truly want for them to disrupt the industry, specifically vertical industry sectors, SaaS companies, because we have those specific use scenario. So then there will be a lot of gaming over there, right? So and the SaaS companies will use their technology, and they also want to take our data. So then a lot of government regulations will come in, right? And so all those will create a lot of dynamics, and also will impact the pace. So altogether, look at the AI and look at our function in the more objective way, right? And this is the very fundamental knowledge base we need to have to prepare for 2025, 2026. Things are moving very fast. Okay.
I love it. Thank you very much. Anything else? Any parting words that you'd like to share with our audience?
We have a couple of messages in the chat, actually. So I was going to just address Melissa's question. So AI data and efficiency are all good, but taken away from candidate experience, very impersonal. Candidates are complaining about being ghosted, drop into a black hole. What are your thoughts? Look, I think this should improve experience. I think where we're going with this, Melissa, is candidates will choose their own adventure, like consumers can. Like my experience with Amazon, I don't particularly want to phone anyone to do an order. I would prefer to, just use the app. And I think that's where we go with candidate experience. I think a couple of other things there. So the impersonal thing can be useful at certain points, right? If I just want to check something, I don't want to wait in line in a queue to speak to somebody, just check transactional information. I think that's perfectly fine. Also, if you think about availability, this is one of the big things for me. Like AI agents can be available 24/7, and you can kind of stack conversations. You don't have to wait for one conversation to finish. The agent's not just dealing with one conversation at a time. So if you think about any recruiting and TA experience where we might want to speak to candidates who are not readily available during office hours, I think we actually drive a better experience by using some of this capability. I would still say you offer the opportunity for a human interaction and engagement. So actually, I think it's about looking at that, what the candidate or the employee is interested in doing. Are they looking to interact at a time that we can't provide human coverage, and or are they looking for a quick answer or a quick conversation that actually would be better served by having this kind of capability, or actually do they want to have that direct kind of human interaction? So I think actually we can make it more personal and more tailored by allowing people to choose some of their own adventure, choose some of their own experience, and then also close the gaps on, availability, peak call times, and all these things that get in the way right now. Just on the comment of ghosting, like this is where I think we use data, AI, and automation to keep an eye on what our teams are doing as well, to make sure that people are keeping their commitment to their candidate and their customer. So one of the things we do at Cielo is, in one of the sourcing tools we have, when you schedule a call with a recruiter, you get to see that recruiter's LinkedIn profile, which creates some kind of commitment to the conversation, as opposed to a faceless calendar invitation. I think tactics and tools like that will help as well, creating commitment between the two individuals that they're going to meet, and then being able to kind of monitor how things are showing up. So I totally agree. If we forced everyone through an individual, through a homogenized automated process, it might not feel great. I think if we use the technology to allow people to choose some of their own adventures and make the decision for themselves, I think we can actually improve some experiences. So that's how I would address that.
That's great. We do have two other questions actually in the chat. So thank you for for putting those in. I think one kind of goes into this, Matt, so I'll kind of keep this with you, is how will AI improve sourcing and screening processes without losing the human touch? So I heard hyper-personalization and some other things. Would you like to expand on that a little bit further, specifically for sourcing and screening?
Yes, I think again, for some people, I mean, personally, I understand how some of these things work. Hiring a lot of engineers, I think those folks understand how some of these things work. A lot of people understand how some of these things work. I'd be perfectly fine understanding that having an interaction to do an initial conversation, an initial qualification conversation, checking of skills, checking of availability, that kind of thing. I'm fine to do that. So I think again, allowing some level of choice for candidates will help drive actually a net improvement in the experience. I don't know if you've seen some of the latest generative AI and the voice capability that Gen AI has now. It's pretty good. So if any of you listen to The Economist or some, other kind of podcasts and news shows, I bet that some of you have not yet realized that that's a voice AI delivering some of that stuff. So I think again, the kind of conversation you can have now with a voice AI is pretty good. And so I think infusing the notion of empathy. I'm not going to suggest that the voice AI has empathy, but infusing the notion of empathy and tone and interaction. So I think we're getting better at some of those experiences as well. I think and again, like just on the sourcing side and kind of the outreach side, I mean, humans have been sending dumb mail merge messages on LinkedIn for the last 15 years. Like literally, I've received "dear insert name" as a start to a message where like the mail merge hasn't worked. So
Yeah.
I think actually when we're doing sourcing and outreach, hyper personalizing, well built Gen AI capability is going to actually improve that experience, not detract from it as well. So, but again, I think it's going to be personal to the individual, and I think we want to, for the moment, we want to still offer people the opportunity to vote out and say, actually, I'd love to talk to a human being for this conversation. That's how I would approach it.
That's great. There is one more question, and it's kind of a big one. So we'll try to get it answered here in the next 3 minutes. But how can we ensure that the accuracy and reliability of the data used by AI? So how are we auditing or fact checking AI? And I guess, making sure that the data is clean when we're looking at it. 2 minutes we have. Stephen, you look like you want to say something.
This is such a big and challenging topic, and I think in the biggest problem Gemini, OpenAI, and they have that exactly the data quality, and not only the existing data quality, and now you think about the large language model and is and will be facing there's a even more severe problem from the data is that a lot of the new data generated and also assisted or even fully automated by the AI. So, and you basically, this is the AI machine and generate the data, and then later use that data to feed, and it's it's like a virus. Okay, so that's the number one issue in my opinion in that industry. So a lot of data processing, a lot of data validation, and for sure the regulation, the governance will kick in. And I don't have an answer. Okay, so for talent acquisition specifically, deploy the very capable CRM, and that is the foundation. You need to take the action now. Okay, because that's the data. If your ATS has that capability, okay, so challenge them to make it happen. Otherwise, deploy the data hub for your organization, especially in those big organizations, and take care of your own data. And see, OpenAI, they will deal with the massive open data by themselves, but you need to take care of your much smaller chunk of data so that you apply those AI capability in your own proprietary data. You will not generate those troubles. Okay, so that's my practical suggestion.
Yeah, I just add a quick sentence to that. Like, I think the old adage, rubbish in, rubbish out, probably, and that's the polite version. There's a better version that I normally say. Rubbish in, rubbish out probably works here. So, as Stephen said, the foundational model providers, we can't do anything about their data accuracy and the pre-trained LLM. What we can control as TA leaders is our data. And like before, you shouldn't have had rubbish data in your ATS or your HCM. You shouldn't have had that before. You definitely shouldn't have it now, right? Clean it up. Use a great provider to help you do some of that. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both for your insights today. They were really impactful for me, and I hope for our audience. Appreciate you all spending an hour of your time with us. I knew we would run out of time, and there's many more things that we could talk about. So you'll have to catch us for a second edition of this at some point in the future. But appreciate you both joining. Again, thank you for your insights and expertise. And I hope everyone has a really great rest of their day.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone.